title. Words which he tosses off with authority and apparent familiarity, and which are part of his regular stock of trade. He can't explain those words to you. If he does not dismiss your question summarily with, "You're not a lawyer, you wouldn't understand," he would disappear into a cloud of legal jargon, perhaps descending occasionally to the level of a non-legal abstraction or to the scarcely more satisfactory explanation that something is so because the law says that it is so. That is where you are supposed to say, "I see." It is this fact more than any other, the fact that lawyers can't or won't tell what they are about in ordinary English, that is responsible for the hopelessness of the non-lawyer in trying to cope with or understand the so-called science of law. For the lawyer's trade is a trade built entirely on words, and so long as the lawyers carefully keep to themselves the key to what those words mean, the only way the average man can find out what is going on is to become a lawyer, or at least study law himself, all of which makes it very nice and very secure for the lawyers. And this is all I'm going to read. You can find the rest on my blog. There's a lot more. And I also have the link to the whole book that you can read. I might put it up with this post. But pretty much, if you followed along with everything we just read and just went through, and again, this is Self-Education Radio on Blog Talk Radio at 646-716-9094 with your host, Prince Avery. And I do this every day. At least I try to do this every day. And now that we got the new setup, we're 1,000 miles and gunning. But the information covered previously in the first half of the show is about how there is a monopoly going on. Lawyers have a monopoly on the law, which says that you only are required to use this one brand or this one product to arbitrate in legal matters. So anytime you're doing business, anytime you run into a controversy with another citizen in your area, you are faced with only the law as your source for reconciliation. And the law itself is made in such a way that the average person is not supposed to understand it. See, they could make it in a way that the average person would understand it, because everything that happens is regular stuff. Everybody sits there and watch daytime court. We watch Judge Judy, Judge Joe Brown, and we see what the judges are doing. And we see what's going on in court. It's not hard to follow what's happening, and the average person already knows what's fair and what's not fair and what makes sense or what doesn't. It's not really that complex and controversial. The problem comes in when you have all this tons of paperwork, all these tons of stipulations, all these other rules that surround the real issue itself that make everything more complicated. That's when it gets into situations where people need to bring in lawyers and everything else like that. Now, what I wanted to talk about in this segment also was a book that I just released on Amazon, and you could get it on Kindle. You could borrow it for free on Kindle if you have an account with them, or you could buy it. It's going for $4.99 right now. But pretty much the name of the book is Courtroom Kung Fu, because, well, personally over the last few years, I've studied a lot of law. And it's not even what I wouldn't say studying a lot of law. The common perception in society is that the law is so complex, it doesn't make any sense. Well, it kind of really doesn't, but also it's very easy to follow if you know what to find. And the thing about it is, you don't have to go in and study every law in every case just because. The only time I sit down and study the law is when I'm faced with tickets, when I'm faced with a court case. And this is what I teach in the book is what I've used to get at least 3 or 4 tickets either thrown out or reduced significantly. I got one ticket that was over $800 that I got reduced down to about $60. And in the book, I go over more detail about those situations and how I was actually able to do that and the techniques that I use. But it's not even a technique. See, a lot of people will put this out there and say, oh, yeah, see, this is a shortcut or a trick on how you could beat tickets, on how you could get out of court cases. The thing about it is there is no trick, and it's not a gimmick. It's actually, no, I just know how to read, and I take the time and go read. And when I read the law, every time I read the law, it's written in such a contradictory way. And a lot of the stuff that they're enforcing is not even stuff they need to be touching. See, every time they enforce a law or charge you for a ticket or come after you for some money and there was no victim involved, when there was nobody's rights or property damaged or rights violated, or you didn't cause any harm or injury to anyone or their property, when none of that is the case, they have no right to come after you. And in the book, I go over all the details and all the legal references as to why that's the case. But if you can't get the book, or you don't have to get the book, I cover a lot of the information. What's really in the book is just the step-by-step courtroom procedure that I use. And also, I have the motion examples, the samples of the motions that me and the people that I work with in the area, we use to get our cases thrown out or reduced. And I've worked with at least 5 or 6 different people in this area, and we all have constant success. That's why I put it all in this small guide. You could get it. There's other people who've been doing this longer who have books and guides out, but all the stuff they're selling, I see one guy, he's selling his motion sample for like $50, and then he's selling his book for $50. And it's like, you know, I understand they put in a lot more work and time, but the stuff is not that complicated. The stuff is not that tricky. So, you know what I mean? I just put out a quick guide that gives you everything you need to know. The rest of the information is available for free, most of it. The book is just a very compact reference you could use. You know what I mean? But I also have a blog up where I put up a lot of the information and the references for free. And it's at fixthecourts.blogspot.com. And in that blog, I talk more about standing to sue, conflict of interest, and original jurisdiction. And I also talk about the lawyer scam some more. And I talk about corpus delicti. You know, corpus delicti is pretty much the body of a crime. It's pretty much the legal doctrine that defines what it means to commit a crime. What is a crime? And in legal, the true legal definition of a crime, well, there's 2 elements to it. First, you need harm, injury, or loss. And then you also need criminal intent, which is why accidents are not a crime. I could cause injury and loss to people without it being a crime. The thing is, as long as there is no criminal intent and you can't prove the criminal intent, you can't say that it's a crime. See what I mean? So when your actions don't cause any harm or loss or injury or damage to property, then technically what you're doing cannot be categorized as a crime, which is why a lot of times when they hand people tickets or possession cases, they make it a non-criminal, they make it a civil matter. But then that makes it worse for themselves, because in a civil matter, if you're making it a civil lawsuit, then it's the same principle. You can't sue somebody for something they didn't do to your property, whether intentional or not. You still can't sue someone for damages to your stuff. You see what I mean? If it's not criminal, then it has to be some damage or harm that occurred. And just using these simple principles and following a few steps, there's a couple of key questions you can ask to discredit witnesses, you know, to discredit the cop, whatever that may be. But just check it out on my blog. It's at fixthecourts.blogspot.com. And there's probably a link in the description of this video or in the description of this radio broadcast. But this is going to do it for this episode. We're going to come back and touch on this subject some more, depending on the feedback that I receive. I appreciate you taking the time to come out and listen to my show. This has been your host, Prince Avery, with Self-Education Radio. Next time, the next show's topic. Well, let me see. I don't know. I don't remember what we just said as the next show's topic. But you can find it. Just look on the website at blogtalkradio.com/selfeducationradio. This has been your host, and thanks for listening.